Have you ever felt like you're doing everything right with money, yet something still feels off? In today's episode, we're diving deep into the emotional and energetic roots of our relationship with money. I'm joined by Leisa Peterson, author, financial coach, and spiritual wealth mentor, who's here to shift the way you think about abundance. This conversation blends the practical with the profound, and it will leave you feeling empowered, awakened, and ready to build wealth from the inside out. Welcome to the Manifestation and Money Podcast, the show where we tackle the taboo topics of money and manifestation. I'm your host, Jenni Schultz, former 9-to-5 grinder who ditched the status quo and went all in on creating a life I love. Yes, I use manifestation. Yes, I took action. And yes, I created a 7-figure net worth before turning 40. Every week, I'll bring you inspiring stories with money mavens and manifestation masters. From learning how to make more, save more, and grow your wealth to unlocking the power of manifesting your dream life. I am so excited to play in this space with you. Let's jump into creating a life you love. Welcome to the Manifestation and Money Podcast, Leisa.
I'm so happy to be here. Thank you.
I'm pumped to have you too. Can you please share with the listeners who you are and what your story is?
The best way to explain is that after more than 30 years of working with people and their money, I thought I understood money. And many people might relate to that, but I had built a successful practice as a financial advisor, helping clients with managing their money and their planning. But through that and many other jobs that I had in helping people with their money, I realized that the industry had really overlooked something that kept coming up over and over again in the relationships that I was having with my clients. And really personally, it's like I kept watching brilliant, capable people making the same self-defeating decisions over and over again. And let's be honest, some people just naturally are great with money. A lot of people aren't. I was pretty fascinated by both parties. How did people create wealth and what did they do to get there? And why are they so free and clear with money? And then I was also kind of obsessed with what was happening with people and their relationship with money and why did it go to the dark side so often? And so I decided to make a whole career out of this psychology by taking a spiritual practice that I had been building since the late 90s and combining it with my understanding of personal finance and financial advising and bringing these two worlds together to talk about people's relationship with money, not just from the mindset, but also from the practical side. And so, I have an MBA in finance. I'm a certified financial planner. My husband and I have been investing in real estate for 30 years. That's one of the ways that we built our wealth. But no matter how much I know about money, what's fascinating to me is there's always more to learn. So that's kind of an intro to me.
I love that. I think is really cool for you to want to know the behind the scenes of the why. So what kind of things come up for you? What kind of things were you noticing with people and the relationships with money?
Yeah, first of all, it's like when I started to look under the covers and realize that our deeply ingrained beliefs and emotional patterns around money often had very little to do with money itself and everything to do with our backstory, I became very intrigued because the more I learned, the more I realized that this information could be incredibly helpful to people, like life changing, because money is such a big deal in our lives, whether we like it or not. We don't have a lot of freedom if we don't figure out money. And so the idea that I could actually help people not just build wealth practically, but build not wealth, money, great, but this sense of abundance, this sense of freedom, this sense of peace in their life because of what I had learned about money and my own journey, I couldn't stop. I feel like I'll probably do this for the rest of my life because it just continues to amaze me at the shifts that people can make just by having greater self-understanding of what's going on underneath the decisions that they're making about money.
So how do you get people to connect that awareness to, oh, I might have something that's triggering my current relationship with money, but it might have been like from my childhood?
I do it in a few different ways. I've been coaching for this past 10 years. And so the process of coaching is really a process of inquiry. It's like asking really good, really insightful questions that cause people to uncover stories and then processes that help them move through those memories, those situations, those traumas in many cases. So all along, I was trying to build a body of work that would help people not need me, quite frankly. And that's where the books came in. So in 2020, my first book, The Mindful Millionaire, came out, and that has been sold worldwide, published in India. We've sold more than 20,000 books. It's considered a perennial seller because it helps people do their own work by going through a process of understanding their money story. And then more recently, I wrote this book called The Money Catalyst. That's a fictional parable that I took my 58 years on the planet and learning about money and tried to write a super simple parable that people could relate to the characters and then get their own realizations through the journaling questions that go with the book. I also want to say to everybody is that I am financially set for the rest of my life, and money is not important to me in the same way that it was, because I do really embody this idea of I have enough. And in that realization of having enough, I just asked myself, what could I do that would cost people the least amount of money? Because not a lot of people I serve haven't figured it out yet. Could I create books that, if people were willing to put the time and energy in, they could get the same kind of impact that my multimillionaire clients could get? Could I do that? And that is really what I've set my whole life around, is making it as simple and easy to follow for anyone, no matter where they're at, to do this work, because I know how much it can help people.
I love that. Yeah, and a book too. Yeah, go out and buy the book, but a book can also be gifted from a friend. You can borrow a book. There's a way to get your hands on a book that,
Yes.
if you are that person that is scrappy in that stage, you have access to a huge resource. And what I love about your book, and like you said, the characters are really relatable, but it's also an easy read. It's engaging. You paint a picture there too. So you're hooked in by the story of the characters in the book. You're not just trying to read a money textbook on, okay, here's what you have to do with your money, right? You're absorbed into the story. And for me, I can see those people in my real life. Like, I know each of those characters in my real life. And I'm like, okay, that is why this person is like that. So it was cool insight there too.
The other thing that was happening is I'm in a different chapter than a lot of my clients, and even my daughter is 27 and she's been building a business over the past few years that's been very successful. I really wrote this book to younger people, but what's funny is a lot of the people in my community are in their 50s and 60s, and they're reading it and they're not just helping themselves, but they're thinking about how, like, they could be a better parent, how they could instill better beliefs in, or help even their parents in some cases. Like, money is very relational. And when we can figure out how money works and how it affects the people around us, I think we become better daughters, better parents, better lovers. Like, all of that is being explored in the book because I see how that affects just about every aspect of our life and our ability to live abundantly.
I'm thinking of my kids. They're still young in my house. They're not out in the real world yet, but that is something that I'm trying to guide them on, is because they're watching us as parents, right? Like, how are we handling our relationship with money? How much as a parent should we be sharing with our kids of the workings of money? Because we don't want them to have the, oh, just assume it comes from the bank of mom and dad all the time, right? So how do we teach the kids growing up in this, especially this instant gratification world of, you can click on Uber Eats or you can click on Amazon and it's at your door the next day, like that instant, the money, they're not even really seeing the money part of money, right? They're just getting the instant gratification. So what kind of message do you have for the kids growing up in the world right now going out there?
Want to say that I have a very clear strategy of parenting and money because I'm so proud of how my kids turned out. If I was concerned that my strategy didn't work, I would not share about any of this. But I can honestly say my children are very different. One's 20, one's 27, but they have the healthiest relationships with money that I could ever ask for. And so, a few tips of how I think that came to be would be answering your first question, which was like, how do you do this thing? How do you deal with the communication of it? And I will say we were far more open about money than most people are. We would talk about the struggles, we would talk about the upsets, we would talk about the wins, we would talk about why we were making choices that we were with, like, putting money in different investments or putting money in, because we do real estate. One of the things that they got used to early in life is that we might only stay in a home that we had just built for a few years, because of tax policy in the United States would allow us to sell a home and gain $500,000 in profit and not have to pay income tax on it as long as it was our primary home. So they knew that, like, we shouldn't get too attached to a house because there's a really good chance that we're going to move, because this is one of the ways that my parents are building wealth and creating choices and freedom for themselves later in life. We would be very open about that kind of thing. What's happening and why are you doing this? And why are we so careful about making our cars last 10 or 15 years? What was the philosophy behind that? Why do we make purchase decisions in the way that we do? Not because we care about what other people think, but because we care about having freedom. We share about the priorities in our decisions and let them make their own decisions. That's kind of a macro picture, but a micro picture would be, we never told them how they had to spend their money. We never said, you have to donate this much, you have to save this much. Some of the best lessons my kids have gotten have been spending all their money and then coming to us and saying, hey, can I have more? And it's like, well, where did the money go? It's like, well, I took everyone to 7-Eleven and I bought all my friends drinks. And it's like, well, okay, if you choose to do that, that's fine, but that's not my choice. That's your choice. So you're going to have to save up money for that thing that you want to buy, because you've got to learn where it comes from and how it goes out. And if you like those decisions you're making. So it's a school of hard knocks of let them fall down. Obviously, I think it's a lot better for a 10, 11, 12, 15-year-old to fall down with money and learn for their own sake than to have us bailing them out and then thinking, well, mom will always be there. Our kids are very responsible in making choices because I think we put it upon them. This is your responsibility. This is what we're going to do to help for college, but this is your responsibility. We talk in those terms. And for that, they feel comfortable talking about money. And if they don't, then they even tell us that, hey, I'm having trouble with this. Communication, I think, is just so underrated, but it makes a difference.
That does. And that just makes me think of money has been a taboo topic for so long in so many households.
My daughter just finished reading the book and she's really, really busy and it was hard to fit it in. So this is the new book. And her reflection was, Mom, granted, I know these things that you're talking about in this book, but to see all these micro teachings that you've been giving to me my whole life written out so clearly so that anyone could follow it was exciting to me. And she's like, I learned new things about you and dad and maybe some of the struggles that you've gone through, but I could see myself and my husband inside of this and some of the struggles that we go through because we come from such vastly different backgrounds with money. And it just made me so happy because I'm like, oh, she sees it and she sees how much care and consideration went into it for the reader, even if they didn't get Zoe's background like
Yeah.
she did.
Yeah. And you have that in your book too, where you have a couple who starts off kind of on the same playing field, but then they have two very different outlooks on money. And so how do you coexist when you have that, when you're coming from one of you coming from the place of gripping onto the saver who doesn't want to spend, and the other ones that's like, well, I want to live my life a little, like I'm working hard for my money. How can we also enjoy life? So what do you have to say for those people who are in that kind of household?
First of all, it's very common. My husband and I have definitely struggled with this over time. But first of all, the tension is real. And what I've seen is that it isn't healthy to just ignore these patterns because many of us haven't been modeled by our parents who figured these things out right in front of us. We don't have a way of actually getting through it. We might love our partner deeply, but there are topics like money that just bring up a lot of anxiety. And so we often will just avoid all of that. And I think the reason it was so important in this story was I wanted to give people tools and even conversations that I grew. I want to say my husband and I grew a lot from writing this book because he helped a lot. There were things that we were still struggling with all these years later, even though I've been fascinated by this topic. And when it came to writing the resolutions, I had to really search deep of what do you say to someone when you're dealing with these situations. So ultimately, the reader may even have language now to be able to go back to a partner and say, this is why it's not working. These are some things that maybe we could do differently just by reading the book, which I think is priceless because, again, there's just not many resources around this topic.
There's not. And in your book too, the fact that you take the time to pause throughout it and actually throw questions right back to the reader in the moment. So a person can be reading through your book, getting the story, something hits them and they're like, "Oh, that's me." Like that's me or that's the person I'm trying to deal with, and you're throwing questions at them. How does this apply to you? And right there they can grab their journal and start digging into their own internal money stuff, can't they?
Yeah, I think what might happen, and the book just came out not that long ago, and so I'm still talking to first time readers. People, it is a page turner. And so what I'm seeing is people might read the book one time through just to get a sense of what's the story, what happens to the characters. And then they go back and they're like, okay, the second time through, I'm going to take the time. I'm not going to rush through this. I'm going to read the passages, they're short scenes, and then I'm going to start to answer the questions. And I promise you that if you were to invest that time, you would be blown away because two things: the story presents an opportunity. It's like going to a movie and afterwards you go and talk about seeing the movie with somebody. You get so much more out of it. But what they've proven scientifically is that if you can journal, if you can write about a topic, right? Any kind of journaling, this is why journaling is such a transformative process for us, that the mind is so powerful that just by journaling, if you stay with it long enough, your mind will start to bring forth the solutions and the next steps for your life without you having to pay anyone for therapy. You have the capacity to come up with incredible solutions. And they've proven this actually works with it's one of the most transformative tools we have available to us as humans to journal. But unfortunately, people just get busy, they forget. But that's why thank you for just even letting me say that because it is really important.
Maybe because it's so simple, we don't put weight into it and just kind of dismiss it. Because sometimes the easy things are like, ah, no big deal. I'd rather go pay somebody $100 to go sit with them and have them tell me what to do. And they might tell them to go home and journal and then they might do it, right? But right there, right
Yeah.
now, this is your permission slip that you can go journal out your problems and start figuring them out on your own.
Well, I mean, you and I were investors, right? And I'm sure a lot of your clients or the listeners are wanting more money. They want to manifest more money. I promise every single person who listens to this, if you were to go through this process and you're looking for new opportunities in your life, new investment things, new stretches that you haven't expanded into yet, like money mindset work, it is inevitable that you will see an opportunity that you did not recognize before just by doing this work. That's why I'm a multimillionaire. That's why I have so much in the way of freedom and choice, is because I've spent the past 25 years focused on the mind first and what's happening inside within first, and then the practical second.
Yeah. Yeah. And you touched on the word manifestation in there. I want you just to touch on how your book challenges the new age manifestation narratives.
So both of my books call out this idea of like law of attraction. If you think it, you become it. If you have positive thoughts, then everything's going to go in that positive direction. I don't really teach that way because the wealth that I've built has come very practically. And so I want to remind people that if you have received a lot of information of it being just all mindset, then you're only dipping into a portion of the process to build wealth. In everything I do, I tell people, please do not stop at the mindset work. Please do not think that just because you had this big breakthrough, your whole entire life is going to be different. Taking action immediately after a breakthrough, almost, I'll say forcing, but in a very gentle way, like telling yourself, I've got this realization. I see the world in a different way. Now, what am I going to do about it? How am I going to ground this in practical reality and take steps so that this does not get missed? Because breakthroughs, when you're a seeker of knowledge, they might come all the time. And if we're not following through on it, I've met plenty of people that do all the spiritual work and they have nothing or very little to show for it. And that's on you, because it doesn't have to be that way as long as you pursue and keep taking the steps. And so even back to the book, the beginning of the book is all mindset. It's all about what's going on underneath the covers, if you will. But as you start to come out of it, there are strategies. Like I had to drill it down to like 10 things, like 5 strategies of like, if you could just do 5 things, if you want more money, for example, what would be the most important 5 things you could do? And if you wanted to save more money, what were the 5 most? And it took me like months to drill down. I had like 15, and then I had 10, and then I had 5, because I was like only the essential criteria. But I wanted people to remember, do not stop here. You got to keep going.
Yeah. And do you think you narrowed it down so that people would feel like it was bite-sized, so they would actually do it? A list of 15, they might go, whew, that's a lot. Because realistically, you just have to get yourself into action. You just have to get yourself taking the steps towards the thing that you want. And then more steps will appear, but don't tell them that at the beginning. Just start taking the steps towards what you want.
Yeah, no overwhelm allowed. I wanted people to be able to do at least one, maybe of each of those that resonates. And then because we got to test it, we got to try it out. It's not going to work out the first time, because these are things that are ways of being that change your life.
Yeah, definitely. And what would you say is your biggest piece of advice for someone to go out and truly step into a life of financial abundance?
Never, ever, ever allow the limited thoughts in your mind to drive the car. That's the thing that I see over and over, is that the limiting thoughts become stronger than the what could be possible for me. And the difference between the people who really do change their life, who bring all kinds of, we'll just say, rewards into their life, they really do trust in the possibility far more than the fear of loss.
That's great. I got goosebumps with that, because it's so true. We are our own limiter or enabler. We are the person that is creating our life. We're steering our own ship, I guess is what I'm trying to say. So that is truly powerful. And can you share with the guests where they can reach out, catch your books, catch more of you, continue the conversation?
Yeah. Thank you. So first thing is, I'm always happy to answer emails, and I'm available for questions. So lpeterson@wealthclinic.com. And you can find out more about the book, The Money Catalyst, at moneycatalyst.book.com. We'll give them a secret passageway. And if you go, you can put your name in, email. If you enter 01 as the receipt number, that will get you into all the freebies of beginning of the book. You can do some meditations. Like, you can try all of this out. It doesn't cost you anything. But my sense is, once you start the beginning of the book, it will reveal if this is going to be something that could help you.
Yeah, that's amazing. I will link all that in the show notes for the listeners. And thank you so much for joining me and having this conversation today.
Thank you.
Thank you for hanging out with me on the Manifestation and Money podcast. If you're ready to take your manifesting to the next level, come join me inside the Manifestation Playground. It's an intentional space I've created to explore, experiment, and expand your manifestation potential. It's where the magic happens. So head on over to www.manifestationplayground.ca to find out more. Until next time, keep dreaming, keep taking aligned action. Cheers to creating a life you love.